It's Monday, and I'd like to welcome you back to the Joust About Careers podcast, where you can learn about careers from the people who are actually in the trenches every day. I'm your host, Brian Brown, and I want to see all people make good career and life decisions. My guest today is Ian Kern, a client services manager at Premier Bank. Ian shares about what a client services manager does, how he ended up in banking because of his love for math, the difference between banking and finance careers, the characteristics of people who would likely excel in banking, and much more. Whether you're interested in a career in the banking industry or are still exploring your options, I hope that what Ian shares today will help all of you make better career decisions and have fulfilling career journeys. Enjoy the show. Welcome back to another episode of the Joust About Careers podcast. And today we have 2016 Van Buren graduate Ian Kern with us. And he is currently a client services manager for Premier Bank. And he's going to be talking a little bit about his career and what he does in his career and how he arrived at this point. So Ian, thank you very much for joining us today. And I guess I'd like to just start out with, what does a client services manager do at a bank?
Yeah, so at Premier Bank, it's their title for ultimately it's kind of what their assistant manager. So for me, what I handle is I handle all of the operations side of things, the documents, retention, making sure things are running smoothly on that side, on top of managing the whole teller line. So I have a team of 5 people right now that I am in charge of making sure that they are getting their training, helping them to run at the teller line successfully, create successful appointments, and ultimately just make sure the branch is running.
How is there just one client services manager per branch? Are there multiple?
Yeah, one per branch. So most of our branches have one. Some of the smaller ones don't necessarily have one. The manager will kind of take care of that, but almost every branch has just one client service manager.
Do you know off the top of your head how many branches there are of Premier Bank?
I believe we have right around 73 or 74 branches in this area.
Okay. Is it mostly an Ohio bank or is it beyond Ohio?
So we span most of the northern Ohio. We go as far over as Youngstown. We touch a little bit into Pennsylvania, some into Michigan, and then we get into Indianapolis as well.
Okay. All right. Interesting. When you were a high school senior, is this where you thought you would be? Tell us a little bit about where you were when you were in high school and whether that's similar or different from where you are today.
Yeah, honestly, as a high school senior, you could have told me I'd be here 7 years later, and I probably wouldn't have believed it because I didn't really know what I wanted to do. I was going into college originally to be a communications major, just with the hope to get some experience. About 1 year, and I switched over to just a mathematics degree because I realized how much I enjoyed it, and job fairs, tons of things, just trying to get into it. And just to be completely honest, I had probably applied to about 45 to 50 jobs after or right before graduating. And Fifth Third Bank, which is where I started out, was the only place that actually reached out to me. So I was like, all right, this is what we're doing. And so I ran it, and best decision of my whole life, getting into the banking area.
So was the love of math, was that from high school or was that something that happened in college that helped you realize that that was something you really enjoyed?
It was definitely something that I enjoyed in high school, but I didn't ever think like, hey, let's go to school for it, because I didn't really know how advanced I wanted to get into it. But like teachers like Mr. Rader, who is retired and everything from there, he was the one that kind of really inspired me into that. And then I was just taking a basic level math course that I was it was just pretty easy for me just because I knew a lot of that stuff, and I had great teachers from Van Buren. And I was just like, man, I really enjoy doing this. Like, why don't I just do this for the whole thing? And switched over and just loved it.
Good. Did you think you would work in banking or did you have other thoughts of how you would apply your math skills?
I mean, not banking wasn't necessarily like my top like thing that I want to do. I wanted to be in finance of some sorts, and banking ultimately gets into that quite a bit. I originally thought I'd kind of like be in like financial analyst field or something. But banking's the door that opened up.
When you think about banking and finance, I think maybe for a lot of people those are very, very similar, but I'm guessing there are quite a few differences between those. What are the differences between banking and finance, but then also how do they interact with each other?
Yeah, I mean, so banking kind of, especially when you're just kind of getting started off, is it's a little bit more in the retail side of things. It's not like you're working at like a Walmart and you're having sales, you're working with customers like that necessarily. It's more people are coming to you with their exact needs, but you're trying to help them get into what they want exactly. So, I mean, managing more of the personal finance side of things on that, helping people figure out what's the best option for them to save money, to earn on what they've got, or lending wise. Or just the more finance piece of it. I mean, that comes with like the bigger companies, like you're looking at accounting numbers, looking at the budget, seeing where cuts can be made, and kind of just all that stuff. So it's a little bit different, but I mean, it's just the business versus personal side of things.
You talked about Fifth Third being the only uh, company that reached out to you. Was that a result of the job market that banking just wasn't hot at that moment? And what is today like in the banking market? I know we've obviously had the Silicon Valley Bank close, and that was a big hubbub. And I guess everything I've heard basically says banks like Premier, completely different type of banking than Silicon Valley was doing. But what do the job prospects look like for someone who might want to go into banking as a career?
So, I mean, a lot of like getting started off, if you're just kind of looking to be like a teller or like a customer service representative, so you're dealing with the money every day, helping those people wanting to withdraw a deposit. I mean, we love to see a degree in there if you have one, associates or some sort. But I mean, ultimately, we'll take someone who's just got experience. We've got someone coming in who fresh out of high school and is just kind of going to learn what it is starting up here at the end of May. So that kind of thing. When you're getting into more of the relationship banking side of things, where you're sitting down with clients, helping to open up accounts, we do like to kind of see like you have some sort of like business background or you have good experience in sales and retail. Because we want to see that you're able to establish those relationships and understand the products and services and how they connect to someone.
That is good to know that it is possible straight out of high school to get into the banking industry. And if a person did that, I mean, is it possible then to climb that ladder? Am I stuck as a teller for the rest of my career? How does that work?
Yeah, very much possible to climb the ladder. I've got many friends that I've met through banking that have started off just as a teller after high school, and they've turned it into their full career, moving up into like being a lead teller, banker, becoming the branch manager. And then, I mean, there's so many options in banking that you just don't think about on the front line of things. I mean, once you get to the back office, there's hundreds of opportunities to have, and it really opens up just starting off as a teller even.
That's interesting. I wouldn't have guessed hundreds of opportunities, but again, as with everything, there's always a lot more behind the scenes than we usually realize.
Mhm.
What are some of the best aspects of working in the banking industry?
Mean, I get to see people with all different kinds of situations every day. I see people who aren't necessarily in the best position, and I get to see some people who have really done well for themselves. And no matter what the situation is, I like to just talk to them about how they've gotten there. So I mean, you really get to meet a lot of people with that. And I mean, just meeting people, if that's something you enjoy, it's really awesome to hear stories and to know them that you're being a part of their solutions, and helping them to get themselves in a better position or help them to reach what their goal is next. Just really getting to build those relationships. And I mean, just there's tons of opportunities there. So it's
Right.
really awesome in my opinion.
So yeah, that emphasis on building relationships, and I think it's interesting how your interest in communications that you had when you were going into college, you're doing a lot of communicating now. So even though you didn't have that as a major, it's still a part of your career, and that worked out well because you
Yeah.
obviously enjoyed that, and now it's part of what you do every day. Are there any things that people might need to be aware of if they were to want to head into this industry that if you don't love doing this, this might not be a career path for you. I guess maybe what are those red flags to look out for if someone is thinking about this and they want to make sure that they've explored both the positive and the negative of the career field?
Yeah, I mean, if you're definitely not like a people person, and enjoy having conversations and making those relationships, it's definitely not going to be a field that's great for you. Just like at least the retail side of things, not options that you have in the like back office where you're just dealing with the computers and maybe just helping the frontline employees like our tellers with things day to day. But I mean, if you're not a people person, it may not be the best option for you because I mean, you're helping people every day. You're helping people who are happy to see you, and you're helping people who definitely aren't happy to see you sometimes. So you get a good wide variety, and it's just having to be flexible with how people are. And had to learn to kind of not necessarily grow thick skin, but I have to be flexible and understand I'm doing what I'm taught to do, and if it makes someone unhappy, unfortunately, that's on them, and there's nothing else that can be done about it.
Right, right. And it has to feel good to, like you said, help people and help them meet their financial goals and make good decisions and so forth. Thinking about career goals, you've obviously started climbing that ladder. Do you have any aspirations of where you would like to be, or do you see yourself staying in banking for the rest of your career, or what are some other options that a person might have as they get experience in this field?
Yeah, I mean, so I'm not sure what the next 5, 10 years or even next year holds for me. So I mean, never gonna say, yep, I plan on doing this the rest of my life. As much as I'd love to just have one solid plan, then that it changes.
Right.
I mean, as far as I'm in it, yeah, I'm in whatever position I'm in. I'm in there to grow, and I want to go as far as I can. So right now, my next step that I'm looking towards getting is becoming a branch manager and handling and operating a whole branch on my own. Um, from there, I mean, like I've said, opportunities with we've got our wealth department that deals with different types of insurances and stuff. We have treasury management services, which are pretty large in a lot of banks. There's mortgage relations, commercial lending. I mean, there's quite a few options. That's just in Finley. I mean, once you get into a headquarters, you've got operations, you've got your imaging. I mean, there's so many options if you're willing to relocate, and if I'm ever willing to, like, there's options available in there. So I mean, ultimately, like right now, I'm planning on sticking with it as long as I can, and until God says something else or another thing pops up, I'm gonna be here.
Okay. And as you talk about all those different positions, it sounds like there could be a lot of positions that don't even necessarily need a math degree or anything like that, I'm sure you've got computer people and, all kinds of different people come together to make that bank. So even if I'm not perfect with numbers, there's probably still something I could do in the realm of banking.
Easily, yeah. There's always something. We've got tons of people. I mean, I've got tons of people on my team with just such different skills and assets that they bring to the bank as a whole. But without each skill that I have, we wouldn't run as successfully as we can. So, I mean,
Right,
different backgrounds, so important to being in banking too.
right. As you think about the size of banks, obviously we have some really, really big ones and some, small ones. And I guess I don't know what Premier, if they would be considered small or large or whatever. I guess anything to consider for someone if they're looking again to go into this industry with the size of the banks, does that really matter too much, or are small banks fairly similar to large banks except for there's a lot more people in the large one?
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely some differences between like the size of banks. So Premier, I mean, it's not a huge bank. I mean, it's this area and people know it in this area, but it's not like what nationally known or nationally known in that sense. But like coming from a Fifth Third, I mean, that goes down the whole East Coast. We get over into Chicago and stuff. So, I mean, it's a large bank. And I think the main difference that I've seen from the large bank to the smaller community bank like Premier is, I mean, just what they're willing to put into the community. Nothing like against Fifth Third, but Premier Bank, we're volunteering consistently. We're investing in each community, and we're really making sure that they are knowing that we're there for them. And while the big banks do the same thing. It's just on a different scale, with it being so much larger.
Right. As you think about where you are now and where you were in high school, what do you know now about careers or life that you look back and say, man, I wish I had known that when I was in high school?
Yeah, so I mean, a lot of coming out of high school, I was under the impression like, hey, you got to know what you're gonna do. You need to know what your plan is, your 5-year, 10-year plan, and those are great things to kind of have your idea on. But in reality, it wasn't as important as I kind of started going through college and then graduating. So that, and then just the other thing is just networking. I think that's something that, I mean, I think you're doing a great job with Van Buren. You're really starting to get that network built with current students there. And I didn't necessarily know, hey, maybe I should build relationships with all these other places and get involved with them and get to know the people, because they really can make or break whether you can get a career somewhere.
Right. And I noticed on your LinkedIn page, you have a lot of volunteering, which you said obviously with the bank, but also that's a great way to build those relationships also, that you never know
Mm-hmm.
how those could help in the future. So that is always very, very important. Ian,
Yeah.
I really appreciate you sharing all of your experiences. And again, banking is one of those that we haven't yet had anyone, and something I don't know a ton about. So I'm glad you shared that. And I hope that there might be some people that reach out to you to ask additional questions. So thank you very much, and good luck as you continue your career journey.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
Thank you for watching and listening to this episode of the Joust About Careers podcast. I hope you learned valuable information from this career story, and to be sure you don't miss upcoming episodes, please click subscribe on YouTube or your favorite podcast platform so you'll know when the next episode is released. Thank you for watching, and as always, this is the place to go to learn just about careers.